This year's Call of Duty is the worst reviewed game in the franchise's history, but something seems off. You see, when talking to the actual community, this is the first time in 10 years where I've seen them so split down the middle, with one side of the community saying this is a glorified DLC and the other side of the community saying this is the best Call of Duty since Black Ops 3. So only one question remains. Is Modern Warfare 3 actually good, or does it live up to its 55 overall rating? So before I continue my review, I want to point out a couple things. Let's bring up the 55 overall rating for Modern Warfare 3. Look, in my opinion, this is the craziest score I've ever seen, and arguably the most wrongful score. This score was given to Call of Duty by PC Gamer. And I'm gonna be honest, I think it's getting to the point where these reviewers have no idea what they're talking about. So I read the review and I was genuinely shocked at the reviewer's point of view. One of his biggest points was talking about how this game has too much movement and it's too fast, and that last year's game actually worked. But then this year, Sledgehammer came and switched it all up and gave people movement back and freedom back. This reviewer goes on to say that movement disrupts the COD flow and that he's getting outplayed by people with cheesy movement. So I'm gonna be honest with you, in my opinion, and I mean this in the nicest way, is that this reviewer was genuinely just not good at the game and doesn't play the game enough. There is no reason to give a game a 55 overall rating just because you're getting outplayed. So I'm recording this a couple days later and I stumbled across an article by Forbes that pretty much stated they don't know why Modern Warfare 3 has gotten so much negativity. So this writer dug a little deeper and found out that the majority of the scored reviewers placed their reviews anywhere from November 7th through November 14th, with the early access campaign releasing November 2nd and the actual multiplayer releasing November 10th. Shows the majority of these reviewers didn't even get to play multiplayer. And I'm gonna be honest, I agree with them completely. But in my opinion, to rate this game a 55 or a 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10, strictly based on its campaign without even playing its multiplayer, it's kind of crazy. It feels like Sledgehammer has actually made a game for the fans. This is the first time I've seen this level of communication, the first time I've seen this level of transparency, and the first time I'm enjoying the game enough to play for 24 hours straight. In my opinion, Call of Duty is back. Don't listen to the reviewers because they don't even play the game. Let's go over the pros and cons, and we'll go over the pros first. There is a lot of pros and there is a lot of cons. This game is not perfect, but let's get into it. So one pro is the communication this year has been absolutely insane. So I might be biased when it comes to the communication aspect of this because I just had a live podcast with Sledgehammer Games a couple days ago. When is the last time you've seen a development team try this hard to be a part of the community? If you are a part of the casual community and you don't keep track of a lot of these things, I will be the one to tell you that Sledgehammer has been going on podcasts, giving question and A's on Reddit, and has had an insane amount of transparency on Twitter. I have genuinely not seen this level of transparency in a long time. Being so involved in the community, I have seen nothing but positivity come from this. Sure, there are still people upset of them not addressing certain things, but I'm gonna tell you this, I'd rather have them address 9 out of 10 things than for them to not address anything at all. So Sledgehammer, if you're watching this video, I just wanna say thank you so much for the level of transparency you guys have had. Now, let's move on to gunplay. Gunplay, in my opinion, is another pro. This gunplay feels so different than what we had last year. Last year, you can argue had one of the worst gunplays ever, with incredibly clunky game feel and incredibly clunky guns. It just felt like a lot of these things weren't meant to be in the game. Visual recoil is no longer a thing. One of the biggest complaints from the community was that how can I even shoot at my target when I can't even see what's going on because my reticle's going crazy? Sledgehammer has fixed this and there is quite literally no visual recoil on every single one of their guns. In my opinion, the gunplay just feels so smooth. It feels satisfying with the gun sounds to the UI to everything in between. The game actually feels good to play. Another pro, which arguably some of the casual community might say this is a con, but movement feels so fluid. I have a question for all you people who hate these movement gods. Why should anybody be limited in the way that they want to play? If you want to camp, go ahead and camp. If you want to play tactical, go ahead and play tactical. But if you want to play cracked out and you want to feel that arcade feeling, you should be allowed to do that. And Sledgehammer has brought that back. Movement in this game feels incredibly good and incredibly buttery. It can be improved, which I will talk about in the cons, but let me go over this. Reload canceling is something that we've had in Call of Duty since the beginning of time. And for whatever reason, they took that out last year for realism, and it just made the game boring. This year, Sledgehammer brought it back, and I'm incredibly grateful. Another thing that was taken out was slide canceling. The ability to cancel a slide mid-slide and challenge and not be stuck in a slide animation is something that we've been asking for the entirety of last year. And finally, again, Sledgehammer has brought it back. Now, the movement does feel a little bit off, which I'll get into in the cons, but overall, movement feels really, really good, and it's definitely miles ahead of what we were at last year. So my last pro, which is gonna shock a lot of people, is zombies. Now, I don't really like zombies in general. I've never been a big zombies guy. I've always loved PvP, but for whatever reason, I'm actually enjoying zombies this year. Now, maybe it's because I'm not a round-based diehard zombie fan, and I just play the game, and if it's fun, it's fun. If it's not, it's not. I normally go for the camos every year that come with the zombies grind, and I will say, for me personally, this is the most fun I've had playing zombies in a very long time. Specifically, only for the camo grind. You're required to do a bunch of missions to complete your camos, and in my opinion, it makes it so that things are always fresh. I'm not gonna lie, as soon as I'm done recording this video, I'm gonna hop on zombies. I was very pleasantly surprised, and seeing how the community was also so split down the middle when it came to zombies, I've seen more and more people say that as they continue to play the game, it gets better and better. So to kind of summarize the pros, I cannot quite pinpoint every little thing of why the game feels good, but I can tell you this. The first day the game came out, I did a 24-hour stream. The second day, I did an 18-hour stream. The third day, I did a 13-hour stream. The fourth day, I did an 18-hour stream. I am addicted to this game. Now, in the past, I never put in this much time into a multiplayer. And that's because I've never been a multiplayer guy. I've always loved Warzone, and that's my bread and butter. But for whatever reason this year, I was finally addicted to multiplayer again, like I was in Black Ops 3. So yes, there is a lot of pros, but there also is a lot of cons. So for cons, one of the things is movement. And I know what you're about to say. Didn't you just say one of the pros is movement? Yes, there are a lot of things that make up movement, and there are bits and pieces that are good and bits and pieces that are bad. About a month ago, the Call of Duty beta came out, and people were in an outrage over the movement in beta weekend 1. Fast forward to beta weekend 2, Sledgehammer heard the community feedback and fixed the movement. Auto tac sprint felt amazing. The movement felt so incredibly buttery, and Sledgehammer marketing the game as movement is back actually felt real. I had more fun in the 3 days that beta weekend 2 was live than I did the entirety of last year. Sadly, when the game came out, they had nerfed the movement heavily, and the community, needless to say, was in an outrage. So what exactly did they do? So for those of y'all who didn't know, there is a hypothetical stamina bar to your character. The more you slide cancel, the more you do things, the faster your stamina bar depletes. So I talked to the Sledgehammer developers, and they said in beta weekend 2, whenever you would slide, it wouldn't pause your stamina meter from refilling. Now, when the game came out, it pretty much stops your stamina bar from refilling when you're sliding. This, I'm not gonna lie, does make the game feel a little bit clunky and feels unintentional, like if it shouldn't be there. I get what Sledgehammer's trying to do. They're trying to make it more realistic in that regard and trying to make it so people aren't spamming consistently slide canceling. Sledgehammer also did say that very soon there will be an update that brings this stamina bar to your HUD in the game. That was just one of many problems, but also there was a huge delay from when you could tac sprint after slide canceling. This has now been reverted to be very minimal. So the developer said if they get enough feedback that they don't like this change, they will change it for the community. Now, in my opinion, I think beta weekend 2 movement was so perfect. It was the perfect middle ground between Modern Warfare 2019 and constantly spamming slide cancel, and where you don't necessarily need it, and it's not a crutch. It is another tool to your arsenal. So for whatever reason, if Sledgehammer doesn't want to make this change back to beta 2 weekend movement, let me propose a solution. The biggest thing Sledgehammer was saying is they don't want people to have to spam their slide cancel to try to get from point A to point B. As of right now, it's faster to just hold down your left stick and run and let your auto tac sprint regenerate on its own. Now, where this becomes a problem is in actual gunfights. One of the best feelings ever is when fighting a 1v2, 1v3, you kill one person, you run away, slide cancel, shoot the next person, get behind cover, shoot the third person. With the way that they're nerfing auto tac sprint and slide canceling, that whole sequence of events when trying to 1v3, 1v2 feels a lot clunkier. So in my opinion, I agree with Sledgehammer. There should never be a point to where you're having to spam your right stick or your circle to slide cancel to get from point A to point B, but it should always be a tool that you use in actual gunfights. So how do we fix this? we came up with a solution that only matters in gunfights. So what if your stamina bar was reset for every kill you got in multiplayer and every knock you got in Warzone? This makes it to where you always have your auto attack sprint when in gunfights, but makes it to where you don't have to spam any buttons to get from point A to point B. I've already suggested this to Sledgehammer, and I really hope they take this and possibly implement it into their experimental playlist, which, by the way, is probably one of the best things they've ever added. Now, another con is no bunny hopping, and I will say this has been addressed by Sledgehammer.
I wish I had a good reason for you why it wasn't there to begin with. It's not there right now, and we're looking at bringing it back in some fashion.
As of right now, you can go and you can jump around a corner and there is no momentum and you feel like you have a 20-pound weighted vest on you. I don't think we're asking for anything crazy where we're bunny hopping 12 times and you're just bouncing around everywhere. But I think one bunny hop, 2 bunny hops after a jump would feel perfect. Another con is aim assist. As of right now, it seems like there's no plans to nerf it. But in my opinion, aim assist is definitely nerfed from Modern Warfare 2 to Modern Warfare 3. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh no, you're faded, you're capping. I'm gonna be honest, rotational aim assist is the problem. That is still incredibly overpowered, but regular aim assist does feel significantly decreased than it did in Modern Warfare 2. So here's the good news about all these cons. Sledgehammer has already addressed every single one of these and they are actively working to fix them. But there's one thing that I believe is making this game almost insufferable, but nobody's talking about it. In my opinion, the biggest thing wrong with this game is skill-based matchmaking or engagement-optimized matchmaking. I don't know what they did this year, but this is the most cranked I've ever seen SBMM in my entire life. Again, I talked to Call of Duty devs, and I will say this, I had the opportunity to ask them about SBMM, and I didn't. And here's why. The people who I was talking to at Sledgehammer are not the ones that we should all be asking the question about SBMM. I only had an hour to talk to these developers, and I was not about to waste time asking them a question that I know they couldn't answer. But with all that in mind, I definitely think SBMM is probably the biggest problem in this game. I don't know how this is going to be for Warzone, but for multiplayer, it definitely is cranked. So if you are casual, if you are somebody that barely plays the game, you more than likely will be protected and be playing in good lobbies of equal skill. If you are a quote-unquote sweat that's crazy tryharding every game, you will be put up against people that are of equal caliber level. So yes, if you are good, it will feel like you're in a ranked game every single game. Now, in my opinion, this doesn't bother me as much as others. I still think it's the worst thing in the game at the moment. But if this is what it takes for us to finally have movement again, I'll take it. Now, lastly, let's get into Warzone really quick. What exactly does this all mean for Warzone? Sure, this game might have insane movement, feel really fun, gunplay is amazing, but when it comes to Warzone, if it doesn't feel good, then what's the point? When we played at Next, multiplayer felt phenomenal, but then going to play Warzone immediately after felt super clunky and just didn't feel right. Recently, Xbox put an interview up with Ted Timmons, and Ted talked about how they will be integrating a lot of the perks/gear into Warzone by default. When we played, perks like tactical boots were already implemented into your character by default. In my opinion, Warzone needs to absolutely stack all the movement perks into Warzone. And I'm not saying this for just the movement gods, I'm saying this for everybody. This map, we can play it right now on zombies, is massive. Going from multiplayer to having all your guns having 30 bullets, nothing that hinders your movement too much, to going to Warzone where everything needs a long barrel, everything needs a 60-round clip, everything hinders your movement, there needs to be something that makes up for that heavyweight feel. There's a couple solutions to this. Warzone can either stack the movement perks and make it to where you feel like you're not clunky anymore, or, in my opinion, which is an easy fix, is give Warzone specifically unlimited auto attack sprint. When going through this incredibly big map, it doesn't really make sense for your auto attack sprint to run out. For multiplayer, I get it. It's 6v6, it makes sense. But for Warzone, when there's arguably going to be 100 to 150 players on a map, things need to be paced differently. Again, talking to the Sledgehammer developers, they said it is possible to change things from multiplayer to Warzone to zombies. You can make the game feel different if they want to. So if I had any advice to the Warzone devs and anybody over there in Warzone, I would say, please, please, please find a way to make Warzone feel fast again, whether that be through auto attack sprint or through perks by default. Just make Warzone feel fun again. To summarize everything, please do not listen to these reviewers who play the game once, give a review, and then get off. Listen to the community who are ride or dies, who play the game every single day and actually care about the franchise. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of tweets of saying COD is back, this is the year, things are actually changing. And sure, we've seen that before, but this is the first time we've seen Call of Duty take action instead of just words. This game is incredibly addicting, and I haven't had this much fun in arguably the last 10 years.